They say that eerie feeling never really goes away. It doesn't matter how many times they're called to these places. One person writes, every single time we're called out, we expect every single human we come across in life and every single human that we meet to be alive. And then you see someone and you are told that they're dead. All your brain does is process, oh, this person is no longer moving. And it's weird because logically you know they're dead because why else would you be here? But you also expect them to pop up or start moving after a while or start talking to you, but they don't because they're dead. One person gives some advice on how to deal with it. My first death scene, I went to sleep and I could still see their eyes. I had to take pictures of their eyes. I just had to remind myself, it's a job, it needs to be done. You just have to make sure you leave all of the emotions at work. Do not bring it home with you. That is the job of a crime scene investigator. They have to be there to meticulously log every single detail and evidence, just taking pictures from every single angle, every feasible possible direction. Sometimes, even though the purpose is taking pictures of the evidence, there is so much thought that goes behind every single picture entered. In really gruesome cases, taking pictures of the extent of the gruesomeness, of the brutality is very important. You need a ton of pictures though, without all the quote unquote gore. Because they say if it's too gory, the defense attorney may successfully object to admitting a good chunk of the evidence pictures for the jury. So you need some that are probably going to make it to the jury, and then you need some that show the brutality, and then you need some that do a little bit of both.
How does that even work?
I guess if it's just too graphic, they could try to not show the jury. One person writes, it's a very tough job. Everyone that I know that's done the job ends up pensioned off with PTSD. I mean, constantly documenting the tragedy and the worst of humanity eventually takes its toll. Just seeing the images is quite different from actually being at the crime scene where the trauma and the grief and the violence is not quite so abstract anymore. With one confirming, since I've been in this field, we've lost on average 1% every 18 months due to mental health. And what I mean by lost is not just a regular job turnover. Like they went and got a new job somewhere else that pays better. I mean, these people are totally unable to work at all in any field. They're gone and they're medicated. The photos typically come in at least 3 sets. Wide-angle shots to show the jury typically the whole crime scene. Then mid-range shots to show a few pieces of evidence and in relation to each other and the whole scene. So if there's a knife next to a chair, you gotta figure out how to show the exact distance in a photo without letting the angle get distorted. Then you got the close-up shots of specific pieces of evidence. March 26th in Texas. Officers arrive, and the first thing that they will later take pictures of is that little green door to the apartment. They take a picture. This is the door to the unit. Unit 1707 swings open, and the 2 officers are standing at the little threshold. The maintenance worker that just handed them the key to this person's unit is standing behind them. He probably can't see what's inside. I don't know if he even wants to see. He's just kind of standing there. The first thing the officers see, though, is on the ground, there is a very large stain. It's a trail of blood on the carpet. The trail of blood goes from the living room, the leather couch, all the way into the hallway. Police! They walk in. They take a mental note not to disturb anything because they've got to get pictures of all of this later. But first, they need to know what they're walking into right now. They follow the blood and it leads them all the way from the living room down the hallway to the right. And there's family photos throughout the entire apartment. They follow this literal blood trail down the hallway into the bedroom on the right. And on the floor there, right when you open the door, is the partially nude body of Kimberly Hill. There's this bloody hammer with a wooden handle laying next to her head, and it's pretty clear that Kimberly is deceased. I mean, this is the murder weapon. The report notes gaping wound on the back of her head. Obvious head trauma. The officer writes, I noticed blood and tissue on the floor. Brain matter was also on the floor next to the female along with the hammer used. The rest of the 2-bedroom apartment is quote unquote cleared, meaning there's no suspect. Whoever did this to Kimberly Hill is gone. CSI comes in to take photos. A bloody pink hoodie on the living room couch labeled as photo 29 in the evidence file. Inside the bloody pink jacket, a bloody hairband, also pictured in photo 29. A pink cell phone laying on the living room couch labeled as photo 30. Bloodstains on the hallway walls labeled as photo 9. Apparent bloodstains on the hallway restroom sink countertop labeled as photo 10. All of these have to be meticulously logged and documented. But the most intriguing picture that the police want taken are of a few notes left behind by the killer. The officers are leaning down. Is this for us? Because it seems to directly address the officers. It reads, "Chase me," and "Sorry for the mess. KD." Who the hell is KD? Later, when they finally catch the killer, they ask him,
Was that addressed to the police or to who?
I was in a very playful mood at the time.
But that's not the main note. The main note that the police are really alarmed by is left right at the entrance of the apartment. It's actually the first thing that you see when you walk in. The killer left it on top of the blood trail. So whoever comes in is going to read this note immediately. And it reads, "Don't lose your head. She may yet live, although I doubt it. Hurry, Desiree." Desiree is the 23-year-old daughter of Kimberly Hill, the woman who was murdered in her own apartment. So first of all, who would do this to Kimberly, and why are they now targeting her 23-year-old daughter? And is the killer going to get to Desiree before the police can? We would like to thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support the Joyful Heart Foundation. They are working to transform society's response to SADV, CA, and support survivors' healing with resources like education, advocacy, and policy change. This episode's partnerships have also made it possible to support Rotten Mango's growing team, and we'd also like to thank you guys for your continued support. As always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. Today's case is probably one of the more gruesome cases I've covered in recent. There's mentions of SA, necrophilia, animal abuse. If you are sensitive to these themes, please take care of yourself, and we will see you in the next one. So with that being said, let's get into it. On the very long list of things that married couples maybe want to do on their off day together, this is probably the last thing on a 3-page list of bullet points. If a list exists, at the very bottom, it would read, "The unexpected guest." This is the last thing married couples want to deal with. Timothy and Luanda are having their morning coffee in their hands. The doorbell rings. Luanda can kind of see out the window, and she sees the figure of like a man. Who is it? We don't know.
And he waved to me like this. He said, "Come closer." And I said, "Yes." And then that's when my husband come around the corner.
Timothy rests his little hot mug down, and he walks up to the small front door, swings it open. It's 10 a.m. on a Thursday. Like, you better not be soliciting for some insurance right now. "How can we help you?" Timothy is scanning the stranger up and down. He's quite short. He's scrawny. He looks very slender. He's got peach fuzz mustache, thin wireframe glasses sitting on top of his nose. I know it's not good to stereotype people, but he looks like a coder. He looks like he codes at night and is an engineer that works for Meta. He looks mostly harmless, if not cautiously friendly. But that's what you say about off days. You can't really plan for these surprises, because 5 minutes after that knock on that door, the three of them are now awkwardly standing there. Luanda, Timothy, and this stranger at their door. Their backs are tense. They're just kind of standing awkwardly. If a drone were to pass over this tiny single family home in Texas, you might think these people are aliens trying to blend in as humans. The three of them standing in front of the front door, not really talking, not really doing anything, just kind of staring. It looks like they're frozen. If the front door is open and the couple have a clock, you would hear it ticking from outside. The coffee's probably cold by this point. The two, Luanda and Timothy, are taking turns clearing their throat. The husband, Timothy, does try to take some initiative in this situation. He asks a few questions to the stranger, but all the answers are coming back very vague. I mean, perhaps some questions are better left for professionals. Maybe he should switch directions. "Would you like something to drink?" The stranger looks him in the eye, contemplates for a moment, and states, "I'm scared of you. You're being too nice to me. I've never had anyone be nice to me like that." And then he just stares at them. Well, okay. I mean, there's not really many articulate things you can say back to that.
Wait, they're standing and that's all is
That's
being
it.
said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's very strange. They just watched the stranger then stare off onto the quiet residential road, just waiting to get picked up.
He kept turning his head looking toward the road, not actually eye contact with us.
Luanda steps aside to call the stranger's ride once more because what on earth is taking them so long? The tension, the awkwardness, she can't even take it anymore. And then finally she sees the very first car pull up, then the second, and at 10 a.m. on a Thursday morning, the cars pull up to pick up this stranger, thank God. And even the stranger looks excited to be leaving. He's got both of his arms in the air, and people start running out of the cars, tackling him to the ground. Those people from the cars also look excited, but in a very different way from Luanda and Timothy and even the stranger. They pull his arms behind his back. You are under arrest for murder. When the cars rush off, Timothy and Luanda likely just sit on the couch in silence because what the hell just happened? A stranger shows up a random morning to ask to use the phone to call 911 to turn himself in because he just committed murder. And then they likely realize he never did tell us his name or who he was. Did he?
Wait, they heard the phone call?
He told them straight up, "Hi, can I use your phone to call 911? I just murdered someone." Then they stood there awkwardly. Luanda moved aside to call 911 again and was like, "Are you guys here yet?"
So they were really, really, really scared.
Yes.
How old are they?
They're a middle-aged couple, 50s.
Asked me if I'd call 911 if he had just murdered somebody. So I told my wife to call 911.
911, location emergency. And she wanted me to call 911 because he said he just murdered someone. Okay, and he's there right now? Yes, ma'am, I'm sure. And he said he murdered someone? Yes.
I made sure and call 911 again because they were taking too long.
All he told them was that he killed someone. Do you remember why he said he killed that person?
And I said, why did you do it? And he just kept telling me lots of reasons. He wouldn't ever tell me why.
23-year-old Desiree is brought into the interrogation room with the two officers. One of them is very bald, by the way. A lot of people have commented that the center of his head, where he's bald, is very bald to the point where the fluorescent lights do, in fact, kind of sparkle off the top of his head. But that's neither here nor there. I point that out because he appears to not be a netizen favorite. They sit Desiree down on one of the chairs. Because remember, there's a note left for her. She's wearing jeans, a red tank top. She looks like she's getting ready to go on a run or run some errands, but she just got pulled here instead. Initially, when the two investigators sit her down, it's kind of hard to say exactly how they're treating her. It feels like she's being treated as a suspect in this case, just judging by the way that they're talking to her. She sits down, her boyfriend is standing out of frame of the camera, and the officers break the news that her mother, Kimberly Hill, has been murdered. And Desiree slams her hand on the table and she's screaming, "Fuck." She gets up and she's hyperventilating, trying to calm herself down so she can sit back down and talk to the investigators.
You went to Houston? Do you like some more?
I will say it's interesting because you read a lot about people's responses to shock and grief. And a lot of the times you can feel the shock and grief in their responses, but it still feels a little bit further away. Her reaction feels incredibly relatable for some reason. I don't know if it's her age. I don't know what it is, but it's the way that she's kind of trying to pace and hold it together. And then she's sitting down and then she's standing up. She slams her fists on the table. She's clearly very distraught. But oddly, the investigators seem to have very little sympathy. Desiree's gasping nonstop. It's like her body can't decide if she wants to collapse or keep sobbing. It doesn't make sense. In between breaths that she sounds like she's choking on, she's apologizing to the officers.
I'm sorry.
It's alright. You're not doing nothing that's unexpected.
She's sitting back down. She's screaming, "No, no, no!" And then it's all over the place. Her boyfriend is in the room trying to comfort her, but she's inconsolable. It takes a few good minutes for Desiree to be able to sit down And clearly, she's doing everything in her power to respond to these questions because every answer could be very helpful right now. The officers wait for her to be semi-calm, and then they break the news to her.
We're going to tell you this. We haven't told anybody else, but he wrote some notes before he did what he did. We're worried about you because
You were on the list.
he was planning on killing your mom and killing you, and then leaving town.
Desiree takes a second to absorb what she's just been told. She was on the killer's hit list. She rests her head in her hands and she just says, but again, if that note was left for Desiree, if the plan was to kill Desiree next, why didn't the killer come for her? Why is she still alive? There's a lot of things hospice workers say that send a chill down your spine as you're working with these patients, and some of it isn't even the normal day-to-day working conditions. And of course, some of the older patients seeing things, people suffering from dementia, and they're talking to people that don't exist in the corner. Yeah, that's creepy sometimes, right? But other times, there are things that hospice workers just feel in their gut. Something doesn't make sense. Something isn't right. One person writes online, one time an elderly woman died, so they did the usual procedure. You know, they have the doctor declare it, notify the family, start to prepare the body for the night since the morgue couldn't get her straight away. We put a cotton ball in her nose and her mouth to stop any leakage. And just before her family comes, one of the staff members walks into her room and the woman is sitting up and moving, very much alive. The staff member freaks out, obviously. We help this woman and then passes the news on to the family. And a few hours later, she died again, for real this time. But we refused to start the process again for a while, just in case. I don't know. It was just weird. Certain things just make you feel like something's not right here. You just have a bad feeling about it. Celeste and Kathleen, they got a bad feeling about this. They show up to the apartment complex. It feels like they got a giant 10-pound watermelon in their stomach. Celeste runs a hospice center in Texas, and Kathleen is an employee, but they're not even here for a patient. They're here for the coworker, Kimberly Hill. She's supposed to show up for a meeting to discuss a few of the patients. She's a no-show, which doesn't make any sense. If anybody is on time, it's Kimberly Hill. She served in the Marines for a decade. Like, this woman shows up on time. She does not miss a beat. If she's going to, she's going to let you know. Celeste and Kathleen decide, why sit at work all day stressing out when we just drive over, maybe for the one time in her lifetime she slept in. They drive closer into the apartment building, closer into the parking lot, and they see a swarm of cop cars just parked out front with the lights on, which is alarming, but who's to say that every flashing light on a cop car is even meant for them? Like, what if this has nothing to do with them and they're just thinking too deep? They drive closer and closer in silence into the lot, and by the time that they park the car, they know because they can visually see all the officers going up and down, in and out of one unit, Unit 1707. Celeste and Kathleen are trying to talk to the police, but they're all, ma'am, back up. You cannot go into the unit right now. Can you just tell us what's happening? When is the last time you spoke with Kimberly Hill? Yesterday. We talked to her yesterday. She was happy. She was having a good day. What is happening? The autopsy for Kimberly Hill is multiple pages long, mainly focusing on the extensive blunt force trauma to the head. The external examination report reads, the scalp is covered by abundant brown hair. The eyes are gray. The nose and lips are unremarkable aside from changes described below. The oral cavity has native teeth in fair state. Upper back has a tattoo of a pair of eyes. She died 2 days before her 51st birthday. In addition, the brain has multiple lacerations, predominantly at the right side. The brain has scattered hemorrhaging. The anterior base of the skull at the left and right sides have fractures. The left subdural area has a 1/4 inch to a 4-inch moist subdural hematoma. In addition, identified within the hair of the scalp are bone fragments and approximately 100 grams of pulpified brain matter. To break that down, the injuries to the brain are so severe that there are actual tears in the brain tissue. So there's physical tearing of the brain matter. You know how skin can be torn? The inside of the brain is torn, which you're only going to get that from severe blunt force trauma to the head. Penetrating injuries where objects will break through the skull and tear the brain, or when the skull bone fragments pierce into the brain tissue. There's breaking of the bones at the bottom part of the skull. There's a brain bleed with pooling of blood. But one of the most alarming details in the entire autopsy is obviously the pulpified brain tissue. Brain tissue, in that sense, has become blended, and brain tissue is now being expelled from the skull. The brain tissue is outside the skull. It is in the person's hair. About 100 grams has left the skull. That's a deck of playing cards. That's a chocolate bar. That's a Dove soap. That's how much brain has been expelled from the skull and has pulpified. The detective working this case is trying to get some clear answers about the injuries to the victim's head, likely clarifying things from the case files. Is this in the front or the back of the head, the injuries? Top, back, mainly? I mean, actually, the entrance wound is around here, yonder, here somewhere. The man explaining it to the detective is calmly, very professionally, almost gesturing to the back of his head to show the detective where the majority of the wounds are. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. The two detectives are taking a moment to soak in this information. Then the detective turns to the man at the police station and asks, "Then so when you dragged her to the bedroom, you kept hitting her there?" Yeah. The detective is not talking to the medical examiner. He's talking to the killer. The interrogation room is tiny. It barely fits a desk and 3 chairs. There's 2 investigators and the killer, the suspect. He's wearing black short-sleeve t-shirt, wireframe glasses, resting his chin in his hand. The suspect's shoulders are even more relaxed than the investigator sitting across him. This looks more like a conference room that you book out in your local college for group projects. That's the energy of the way this guy is sitting. The detective looks at him.
I think you want to kill us.
Oh, no, rather, men aren't my thing, actually.
Women.
Yeah,
Okay. Do you have a girlfriend?
I don't. I've never had a girlfriend.
I tell you what, give me your fancy of killing a woman. Oh, your fancy killing would be your ace killing. What would that be?
This is a little peculiar. I'm on camera. Okay,
He looks up, stares into the abyss for a second. His chin is resting in his hand like he's thinking about a good steakhouse that he ate a few weeks back.
maybe dressing up in a nice suit, sneaking into her house, disabling her boyfriend. You know, yeah, I'd bring a pretty dress with me to dress her up in. I was always into strangling, but after that last blunder, I guess maybe something big and sharp would be more along my thing. Then I could, I don't know, probably decapitate her, as I prefer my women dead. I'd dress her up, I'd stitch her up, kind of try to work the head back on, perhaps. And then I'd go to town, and it would be a night to remember. And then I'd kind of just burn everything and run for the hills.
First of all, why did the police ask that question?
I think everything about this confessional with this suspect so far indicates a serial killer in the making. So maybe that's why they asked. I will say the interrogators for this case are not widely liked. I think a lot of people think, good thing the killer confessed because they were not going to solve this case. A few things that are psychologically intriguing aspects to his perfect crime. The first being that his perfect fantasy involves being nicely dressed in a suit. And he would bring a dress for his victim. Psychologists say the fact that his fantasy includes him dressing up in formal attire, specifically a suit, which in men usually serves as a symbol of status, professionalism, it carries some level of power. Then the fantasy of dressing up the female victim is additionally telling. They say the victim is treated as an object to be manipulated. Changing a victim's clothing is actually a form of asserting control over their body and their identity. The fact that he is dressed in a suit, the fact that he wants to dress the victim, that suggests almost a ceremonial aspect to the fantasy as well. And interestingly, in the fantasy, he mentions he's going to target a house with a couple rather than a woman that lives alone. And the first thing he's going to do is disable the boyfriend, which means the offender may desire to demonstrate dominance over other men, potentially enhancing feelings of power.
So he's not talking about Desiree.
No, he's not talking about Kimberly. He's not talking about Desiree. This is his perfect murder. The perfect, like he would get the most satisfaction out of. The ultimate fantasy for him. There's actually quite a bit the investigators have to go off of on this case. The killer even left a few notes for them. The two from the beginning of this case, one taunting the police, the other taunting Desiree. But a third is about the killer himself. He writes at the very top, life resignation notice, underlined. I had a change of heart. I said I was going to do it, and so now I'm going to stick by my word. I am a man after all, albeit a hilarious one. Too much damn work, so many obligations. Seriously, people. But most of all, me. By the way, I've always fantasized about murdering and R-wording you two. It's kind of funny how you never really know someone, not even your own son or brother. Sorry for the bathroom mess, Mother. Good luck recovering from the shock, you two. Sincerely, or not, Kevin Jazrael Davis. Kevin Jazrael Davis is Kimberly Hill's biological son and Desiree's half-brother.
And who is this letter addressed to? He's talking to the mom and the sister, right?
Yes.
But he just killed the mom.
Yes.
Or was this like meant for her to see before her?
Yes. He thought about self-exiting. He wrote this letter, and then he changed his mind and killed his mom instead. The bottom of the letter, there's a little notation. P.S. I killed that stupid gray cat because I was bored one day. Sorry. Now, 10th grader, 18-year-old Kevin Davis is sitting in that interrogation room. Less than 10 minutes after reading Kevin his rights, Kevin is calm. One hand is resting on the armrest. The other is casually placed under his chin. Sometimes he itches his chin. Sometimes he gestures to talk. It doesn't appear like he's nervous. He's just chatting, answering all the questions. Is she your natural biological mother? Yeah, actually, she is my natural mother. But I take after my father. He later goes on to explain, but he's not really in the picture. He's an idiot.
He's an idiot.
He looks at both the interrogators.
I'd always loved my mother, I guess in the wrong sort of way, but a kind of love, I guess. Maybe some rage. Maybe just a little.
He mentions to the two detectives in the room very casually.
Oh yeah, I lost my virginity to a corpse.
What did he just say? He says the whole night starts because he asked his mom for permission. Permission for what? To die.
Very beginning, I asked my mother for permission to die, or rather kind of commit the sort of beating around the bush sort of thing. Because, well, that doesn't really matter why I wanted to kill myself. Sure does. I'm bored with life. I don't like life. I don't like people. I don't like living it, basically. There's really anything depressing about it. It just is what it is. And so she said, basically, I'm a grown man, and what I do, I can't really stop me. She was distraught over it, of course. I mean, of course. Yeah, she said she'd cope with it. I mean, if you kill him, that's kind of why she wanted me to go away, why she called my sister to come pick me up, and that's kind of why I just left. Not necessarily, I just knew it was time to act now or never. I mulled it over, and then on a whim, actually, I turned it over, wrote a plan to kill both my mother and my sister, quite frankly, because that's always been a thing of mine. I'm a bit of a pervert.
Is it like a fantasy thing?
It is, actually. So, that didn't happen. The best laid plans never work out, apparently, or at least the one scribbled on a piece of paper.
So how did he do it? Kevin starts calmly telling his version of events. Kimberly Hill, his mom, is sitting on the couch watching TV. Kevin approaches her from behind. He says, I tried to strangle her with a cord ripped from my video game console controller.
That didn't work out too well. She started screaming, and so I went to her room, opened a drawer at the very bottom to the right. I pulled out a hammer. I went back in the living room, and, well, you kind of get the gist from there. And, she was out pretty quickly. Kind of tried to play dead at first, but then I finished it.
How many times did you hit her with the hammer in the living room?
at least 20, but then she was still alive. I dragged her into the room, as you probably clearly saw.
He uses his hands to narrate. He sounds like an older Southern lady that's a little bit disgruntled at an establishment because they forgot to give her her ice water. A little bit of disdain, but it's not vicious, just very casual. This is probably the second least entertaining part of his day.
And then what did you do after that?
Then I had sex with her corpse.
You did? Okay. Did you cut her?
I did, actually.
Have you ever done that before, like that with her?
No, I haven't, actually.
This is just the first time?
Oh, yeah, I lost my virginity to a corpse.
Okay.
He continues to tell investigators that after killing and committing acts of necrophilia against his mom, he took a bath.
I took a bath before then. Well, that's a little personal, but yeah, I needed to clean it off, and so, and then I changed, yeah.
Okay.
How did you come up with the idea of killing her and assaulting her corpse? How did I come up with it? Yeah, it's been a developing idea. He just shrugs and looks off to the side like, what kind of question is that? Like, how did you come up with the idea of breathing? I don't know how to answer that. That's the attitude. Kevin says he's always been fascinated by death.
Well, despite how I ended her life, I'm kind of more fascinated by the more artistic ways of murder, the meticulous manner, the way they cut them open, just slice them to pieces with, such care, such love. And
if you ever see a cow standing off to the side of the road, staring intensely at you for prolonged periods of time, just not moving, frozen, it feels like they're trying to remember you from a past life, the cow is staring into the depths of your soul, it's not a weird cow. It might just be mad cow disease. It's a neurological disease, and if you walk closer, you might even hear the cow grinding their teeth. Mad cow disease has a 100% mortality rate. It's terrifying. There's about 233 people that contracted a variant of mad cow disease from eating infected cows. And there is a similar one that only affects humans, and it doesn't start with cows. It's called Kuru. Mad cow disease and Kuru are both prion diseases. Prion is a misfolded protein. And it just acts like a molecular zombie. And they get other proteins to get misfolded, and then they clump together. And then those clumps of misfolded proteins create microscopic holes in the brain. And it quite literally turns the brain into a sponge, like a Swiss cheese sponge. And it can happen so slow. Sometimes symptoms can take 50 years to show. And when you feel it, there is no stopping it. The fatality rate is 100%. Kuru is the so-called human version of mad cow disease. And at first you think, what is wrong with this person? Are they just having a good time? Because they have these pathological bursts of laughter. And it's so confusing because you're like, why are you laughing? Nothing is funny. I'm so confused. But then you maybe go with it because maybe they're thinking about something funny, but they're not. Some people call Kuru the laughing sickness. And then the shakes start, the unsteadiness, the entire body is vibrating while you walk. Additionally, the toes remain forever curled. The feet feel too painful to take too many steps. The term Kuru means to shake or tremble. And as your body is shaking, there are holes being made inside of your brain. And death is not quick. Sometimes it takes 3, sometimes it takes 23 months.
How does a person
contract Kuru?
Yeah.
Let's say you eat a human brain. Kevin is staring at the officers in the interrogation room, and something is not adding up. The officers need to figure out, is this murder or is this capital murder? So in the state of Texas, if he kills his mother and then commits acts of necrophilia, it's regular murder. If he R-words his mother and then kills her, it's capital murder, because capital murder needs aggravating circumstances. So it's actually kind of sick and twisted because you would think that both are capital murder, but it's not. So they're trying to ask these clarifying questions. So she's dead by the time that he drags her into the bedroom to assault her corpse. Is that the story? Kevin is explaining that he attempted to strangle her, then got the hammer, and then dragged her to the bedroom and then assaulted her. He says that his mom tried to act dead, but he knew that she was still alive because she was making noises. Quote, she was still snoring like a baby. Which, side note, some context, I feel like unfortunately this comes up every now and then in these cases. When people suffer from severe blunt force trauma, they may sound like they're snoring at times. It's a very specific type of breathing that almost indicates that they're actively in the dying process. If it sounds like someone is snoring after blunt force trauma to the head, death is likely imminent without immediate intervention. The condition generally takes 2 breaths to several hours to progress into just ultimately no more breathing. So that's why this will happen a lot more with children. When parents kill their own children, they'll think that the child is sleeping because of the snoring noises, and then they'll die. It's not snoring. Kevin says he decides at that point to take a knife, a steak knife from the kitchen, and stir her brains with it. That is the words he used.
Oh, that knife. Actually, I used that to stir her brains up a little, but then that didn't really work out, so I just kind of decided to delve on it, and I kind of warmed my hands into her brains to kind of just cut it. She was still snoring.
Okay, so she was still alive?
She was still alive.
And you went in there and you kind of grabbed those brains?
Yeah, finished it.
Like he stick the knife through the
wound in her skull to stir her brains.
And that's why the part
is pulverized, pulpified, yeah.
And then so when you dragged her to the living room, to the bedroom, you kept on hitting her there?
Yeah, kind of.
That's where that's when you reached in and grabbed her brain?
Yeah, I kicked at it a bit. Then I just that was kind of silly, but then I just decided to reach in and kind of just do it.
Later, a psychiatrist from Kevin's prison will testify to the jury that, quote, he used the hammer to kill his mother, and of course the skull split open. He wanted to make certain that she was dead. He stuck his hand in the skull and mixed up the brains, and then I think he told me he got a knife and mixed them up as well. Then he said it felt like pudding, like putty, the texture, the consistency of the brain tissue. He said that he also tasted the brain. Near the end of the interrogation, the officers asked Kevin, after the murder, after the necrophilia, quote, so you were covered in blood? Oh yeah, I was covered in blood. My glasses, everything was a mess. Do you feel bad for what you've done to your mother?
In a way, yes, but I wouldn't take back what I did. It's strange, really. I did love her. In a way.
Can you be mean to me?
Oh, no, she's been the best mother.
Okay, so nothing that she did?
Oh, absolutely nothing, no.
If I was to ask you, what did she do to deserve this, what would you answer?
Absolutely nothing. I'm a cruel, disgusting person, yeah.
The only reason that he didn't go after his sister, like his original plan, is because, well,
I decided against it because, well, I'd had my fill of killing. I didn't... seemed a little much. Mm-hmm. A little too excessive, yeah.
But he did leave that taunting note to her, which they ask him about, and he starts touching his ear a little bit, like he's talking about a distant family member that's got some problems. My sister, she's a good girl, rather sensitive. I knew she would lose her head if she kind of saw that. But then you wrote that note. You knew your mom was already dead. Oh yeah, I knew it. Were you just messing with Desiree, that she might still be alive?
And my sick sense of humor, okay. I was pretty well off my rocker by then.
Do you consider yourself mentally disturbed or crazy? Do you consider yourself any of those things, or you think you're just okay? Like you just have some bad thoughts?
I'm not mentally disturbed. I'm sane. I know exactly what I did. I know that it's wrong in the traditional sense of wrong. Now I feel vaguely kind of like I'm done.
Mm-hmm. So you still feel like you're done with your mom? You still feel like you want to keep on killing to keep on the other fantasies, or how do you feel? Kevin takes a moment. He sighs.
I came here to pay for my crime, so I guess I should continue with the truth. Mm-hmm. Truthfully.
Yes, definitely.
I would kill again.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
If this is how bad 18-year-old Kevin is, if this is how unstoppably evil, how did somebody not notice? Or did they and nobody said anything? Police are trying to figure that out. All Kim told her close friends was, yeah, sometimes she has problems with Kevin because he doesn't really like going to school and he just wants to play video games. And he does kind of seem like a loner with no friends, but that's it. The detectives ask around, they all say the same thing. Some of them even say, I thought he was a good kid. In the interrogation room, they ask Kevin, how do you do in school?
Pretty mediocre. I never really could muster, but didn't even really care. I mean, I guess I excelled in English for all that was worth.
Okay. How about sports?
No, I don't like sports.
Desiree says while Kevin has never been violent or abusive to anybody, he just seemed like he had some social issues. She says he was kind of born different. He had severe ADHD. He doesn't really have any friends. His dad is no good, but he was never physically abusive or anything like that. He would pop off at the mouth and tell my mom crazy stuff like, "Fuck you, you fat bitch," like stuff like that. And she would just let it eat her alive. Desiree was on the phone with her mom the night of the murder. She says, my mom told me that they got into a fight and Kevin was just being disrespectful and just saying some really hurtful things. She told me she would call me when she felt stronger. Do you know what the fight was about?
It was something as simple as like this commercial came on for like eHarmony or some dating site or something, and he just out of the blue said, "Yeah, Mom, you gave up on love," and she said, "No, Kevin, I didn't give up on love, but even if I wanted to find love and I couldn't and have anybody over because you're here." And I mean, that's my mom. Really, she loves this kid. You know, she was just. It's not like they had a horrible like relationship. He really. I can't think right now.
She just bought him a $100 jacket and she knew he would just throw it on the floor just because she thought he liked it. She cares about him. My mom told me last night that he screamed, "I wanted to say this for such a long time, but I don't give a fuck about you or my sister if you guys died." It's crazy. You know, this kid is spoiled to death in there. She was just really upset and I was trying to calm her down.
So the cop did tell her that it was the brother.
Yeah.
And what was her reaction or...
That was the reaction from earlier in the episode.
Oh, she's like up and down and...
hysterical, screaming no.
Out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Has he always had a few issues? Desiree says, when he was little, out of nowhere, he would just draw shit that was bad. People getting shot, stuff like that for no reason. Wait, how is my brother doing in all of this? Was he just straight-faced? Yeah, he's here in the other room. He's confessed to doing it, so he admits doing it. He's got no bones about it. Your brother's a little strange. He had no indication in the past that he was violent. I mean, we've had fights face to face where we were screaming at each other, and he's never hit me. He's never ever done anything like that. I've never seen him really get so angry to where he'll even punch in a wall. I've never seen that. The detectives oddly laugh. You're the one that punches a wall, right? Yeah, I mean, there are issues. He would talk about if they had a fight, like, I'm going to self-exit, blah, blah, blah. And one time my mom did call the police and they did take him to the hospital. They confirmed that Kevin has no girlfriend, no friends in general, and he spends most of his day on the computer. Now, side note, experts do not believe that Kevin would have ever self-exited. Even his life resignation notice, which is supposed to be the last letter he leaves his family, he writes, "Good luck recovering from the shock, you two." His self-exit, had he ever done it, would have just been to hurt others. But he decided, I'm just going to hurt them directly instead. The detectives asked Kevin, did you ever tell anybody else what your plans were, what you wanted to do to your mom and your sister?
No, but over the years, there were hints. As a younger boy, I was a lot dumber, a lot more angsty, you know. I said things, but I guess they basically brushed it off. I guess the hints were everywhere, but they're my family. Family looks past that kind of stuff, or they try to not look at it. Mm-hmm.
Later, Kevin is asked about committing necrophilia and if that's the first time that he's done any sort of, they use the word sex. They ask, you've never done that before? Kevin has his chin resting in between his thumb and index finger and he looks down. Then he taps his index finger on his face, his chin 3 times, and says,
well, I guess since I'm being quiet about it, I might as well tell you now. Yeah, and it's on the note too, the PS part. We used to have a gray cat named Claire. Oh yeah, bestiality is a thing of mine too. Now you know. And so I strangled it, I drowned it, and then I cut it open, and you know the rest. Kind of get the rest.
You had sex with the cat, with the dead cat.
Yeah, ripped it open, stuck it in there. Yeah.
To the cat?
To the cat.
Corpse?
Yeah. Have you ever done anything with a live person? No. So that's your thing. Having intimate relations with live people don't turn you on. It's the dead part. Dead person, dead animal. That's what turns you on?
I don't necessarily mind. I don't have standards or morals. Body's a body, and in the end, piece of meat. I guess it's harsh to say, but...
Near the end of the interrogation, Kevin is asked,
Anything else you want to add about what happened that's important that we should know?
Not really. I'm sure interested in other colorful details.
What? Like,
yeah.
What?
So a lot of people are confused why Kevin turned himself in. The plan was to kill his mom and then go kill his sister. He decides not to kill his sister. He said he thought it was a little much, a little excessive. However, a lot of people think it's because she probably was living with her boyfriend and he decided it wouldn't end up happening. Like he would be overpowered by the boyfriend. And that seems to be a part of his fantasy, is to disable the boyfriend. And if that doesn't work, it would be the opposite of his fantasy. So then he says he got on his bike. He rode all night long. So he's biking. The murder takes place at 8 p.m. and then all night he's biking. 10 in the morning on Thursday, he shows up to a random person's house and he decides, I'm not going to do it anymore. Like, I'm not going to go on the run. There's no point. I think that he genuinely knew that his odds on the run, because he didn't have a plan, were not good.
So after the murder, he wrote those multiple notes.
Yes.
One is for the cops.
Yes.
One is for the sister.
Desiree, yeah.
And he left it at the front door.
Yes, because he thought the sister was going to come over. I don't think that he thought that the people at work would call in a wellness check.
Oh, so that's how the police came before the work people came.
Yes.
It was a wellness check.
Yes.
Turned into a...
Yes. And then simultaneously, he's at a random person's house in the town over asking to call 911 because he killed someone. And that triggers more police to show up to check on Kimberly.
Oh, okay.
He's very calm throughout the entire part where he shows up to Timothy's house and his wife's house. He even says about that night bike riding, I kind of zigzagged around like an idiot. I had no idea where I was going to go. I mean, it was a little leisurely because, after you murder someone, after you cross that kind of line, you don't really think about what you're going to do next. And then they call 911, Timothy and Luanda, and they're remarkably calm.
911, location emergency. Yes, ma'am. Someone just knocked on my door. He's here at my door right now, and he wanted me to call 911 because he said he just murdered someone. Okay, and he's there right now? Yes, ma'am. I'm scared. And he said he murdered someone? Yes. Okay, is there any way that maybe I can speak to him? Would you like to talk to 911 on the phone?
Sure. Hello?
What's going on, sir?
So, as I said, I've murdered someone, actually.
You said that you killed her? What happened? Well, I killed her. I guess it'll come out in court. What I'm saying is, did you shoot her? Did you stab her? Or I bludgeoned her with a hammer? Okay, sir, we're going to get somebody over there. Okay? Okay. Bye. He tells Timothy and Luanda that he's been walking the train tracks all night crying before he decided to turn himself in. Luanda said she was very scared, don't get her wrong, but she was also kind of confused on whether she believed it or not. She says,
in a way I did, but in a way I didn't. I thought maybe he might have been on medication or something, because he was just too calm and just, nonchalant about everything. It's
like she thought maybe he's on drugs and thought he did that, but not really.
Yeah.
As to why Kevin answered Luanda and Timothy's questions, like, why'd you kill someone? He says lots of reasons. He explains, I was using their phone, so I thought I might as well tell them when they asked me questions. They had questions, and I'm using their phone. Timothy was supposed to be at work that day, but called off, which a lot of people think if Timothy had not been at that house, he might have committed murder again. It seems like he is scared of physical confrontation of other men. He's a bit scrawnier. He likes to, take advantage of people that might be vulnerable to him, whether that be his mom because his mom loves him, or whether that be a woman that is smaller in stature. But people suspect without Timothy, he might have tried to kill Luanda, but didn't have the courage to overpower him. When investigators asked Kevin how long he's felt like this, he said,
It's around my preteens, actually. Yeah.
You ever seeked any kind of medical attention, psychological? You feel that you can cope with that?
Nope, I never really seeked help, actually. I just accepted it as a part of me. I wasn't really ashamed of it. It just was what it was.
According to forensic analysis of his computer, there are computer files, image, video files, web searches for R-wording torture and corpse-related sexual fantasies. And as for Kim, a lot of netizens are distraught knowing that everyone, Kevin, Desiree, both say that she was a good mom. She did nothing wrong. She did not deserve this. But he still killed her in a way that, because I think, not saying that any parent who is killed by their child deserves it in any sense of the word, but I think a lot of people are comparing this to serial killer cases. Jeffrey Dahmer, Ed Kemper, a lot of people that might have complicated, well, Jeffrey Dahmer not as much, but Ed Kemper had a seriously complicated relationship with his mom. And a lot of people thought he's headed in that direction to become a serial killer, except his mom was not overtly disciplinarian with him. His mom was not overpowering or doing anything that typically triggers these serial killers. Again, if she was, it's still not her fault. It's just, it doesn't make sense to a lot of netizens.
Yeah. So exactly like what is going on with him, right?
And unfortunately, there's not a lot of information on Kimberly. We just know that she served in the Marines for 10 years and she was working in hospice, and a lot of her patients' family members adore her. She also clearly cares a lot for her kids. In the bookshelf in her room, she had a note displayed inside of a glass picture frame. It's a handwritten note. Left early to make your day easier. Love you. See you after school. Kevin. The fact that she framed that's probably the most loving note she ever got from Kevin. In the interrogation room, Kevin is asked, tell me, what do you think should happen to you? What do you think your punishment should be?
Whatever the judge, the people, jury deems fit. I can rot, I can suffer for years, or I can be given the death penalty, whatever they think.
What do you think you deserve? Killing your mom? Having sex with your mom?
I deserve to rot and suffer.
He adds, I don't expect people to think very highly of me after this. The DA's office offers Kevin 60 years in prison, but he rejects it, which is interesting. So either he or his attorney thought that he would get less with a jury trial, which is crazy. He was found to have a personality disorder, but ultimately declared sane. During the trial, the jury is shown the interrogation footage, and as they're watching him confess to likely some of the most heinous crimes they've ever heard uttered on this planet, when that video is over, he swivels around in his chair, faces the jury, and smiles at them. During impact statements, Desiree comes to face her brother. The whole time, he's just shrugging, sighing, as if he's getting a lecture from an older sister. Kim's dad, his grandfather, tells him, I don't quite know what to say to you. You killed your mother. You just don't do that. You took the only person who had your back, and now you're all alone. He's cracking his knuckles. He's smiling. He's stretching his legs.
What?
When witnesses are asked to identify him, he waves and smiles at them. It takes the jury less than an hour to convict him, but because he was not charged with capital murder, he will be eligible for parole March 25th, 2044.
What is that? Like, how old will he be?
So that will be, he'll be like 50.
Wow. So there's no reports of what's his issue. Like what?
Personality disorder is
the only thing.
Yeah. And he is held in a facility that focuses on psychiatric issues, but I don't think he's going to get out for parole, but legally speaking, he is eligible. And a lot of people say this is one of the most disturbing true crime cases that they've ever come across. A lot of people feel like he's Edmund Kemper in the making, a notorious serial killer. Others are just upset at, quote, justice. They say this thing is eligible for parole. Others are just having introspective moments. I mean, there are probably hundreds of thousands of people like this on Earth. It's insane to think that they dwell amongst us. With one commenting, to be honest, this guy sounds like an 8chan edgelord basement dweller who admired serial killers but wouldn't have the balls to become one. He's a wannabe killer who is really just a sad loser who just watched way too many sick, intimate videos and gore. Others believe that his mom is wrong. This is crazy. Some people say that when he told his mom that he was going to self-exit that day, she didn't do enough to stop him, and that's what triggered this. But others argue, or some people argue, no, the mom must have been abusing him somehow, we just don't know it. To which a lot of netizens write back, he's just plain old evil. People say, oh, he must have been abused. He's just straight up evil. I don't know why it's so hard for people to comprehend that he's evil, and evil exists in the world. He's sick, he's evil, he's psycho. That's the comment. Others are upset with how the investigators are treating Desiree, writing, these two detectives were so unprofessional and treated the poor sister dreadfully. Their conduct was unbelievably terrible. With another comment agreeing, great work by the cops for making this as traumatic as possible for the sister. Some even point out the 911 operator. The way the 911 operator handled this was incredibly unsafe and ridiculous. Asking her to make direct, prolonged contact with the brutal killer, like, can he talk on the phone with me? And the police not showing up until after the second call? With another writing back, yeah, 911, what's your emergency? There's a killer at my door. Okay, can you put him on the phone for me? And that is the netizen reaction to the case of Kevin Davis. What are your thoughts on this case? Let me know in the comments. Be safe, and I'll see you in the next one.